Hello everyone, apologies in advance, I'm recording this while deathly sick. I was fighting a little UFO that shot a beam that causes nighttime stuffiness, so please bear with me. I promise I'm not contagious through the internet. With that out of the way, throughout the last couple of weeks, Nintendo has issued 60 new Mother series icons via their Nintendo Switch Online app. 20 for Mother 1, released as EarthBound Beginnings here, 20 for Mother 2, aka EarthBound, and you guessed it, 20 for Mother 3 that are exclusive to Japan.
Oh, boo-hoo! Let me play a sad song for you on the world's smallest violin.
They're notably the only icons to ever be region-locked. We even got the really obscure ones like the freaking Famicom Disc Writer kiosk, but not Lucas, who's been in every Super Smash Bros. Game since Brawl. Thankfully, by changing the location on your Nintendo account to Japan, you are able to acquire these elusive PNG images that now safely stay when you switch back. I say now because on the evening these were released, they legitimately broke the app so that no icons would display at all, likely because it was trying to load something that didn't exist in your region. Even GameXplain reported on it, which aged poorly because the issue has since been fixed. But it feels like such a victory for Western Mother fans because Nintendo had to have been aware of the high volume of people doing this. Before it was patched, I hesitated because of all the bug reports, but ultimately decided that even if I had to keep my region in Japan moving forward to use the app, I needed these icons no matter the cost. Nevertheless, now that the gang's all here, how are we feeling about the icons that were chosen? With a hard limit of 20 slots per game, Nintendo had to really narrow down a rich collection of sprites. Obviously, cuts were necessary to make as not everyone could be represented. So did the Big N do the series justice with their picks? I'm here today to praise and critique, while offering my own suggestions for replacements whenever necessary. These are the icons I would choose if I were in charge of distributing these precious PNGs. First and foremost, I am going to run through which characters are granted immunity, meaning they absolutely have to stay no matter what. Their position is set in stone. I feel that this should apply to all main protagonists. Ninten, Anna, Lloyd, Teddy, Ness, Paula, Jeff, Pooh, Lucas, Duster, Kumatora, Salsa, Flint, and Boney.
Electro, Diglett, Nidoran, Mankey, Venusaur, Rattata, Fearow, Pidgey.
I'll also include Pippi, who is fully playable, albeit briefly, unlike characters who passively join the party. She's notable as the first friend to accompany Ninten, and she's responsible for introducing the legendary Franklin badge to the series. Lucas's twin brother Klaus is similarly playable for an even shorter amount of time, but he is so undeniably integral to the story that cutting him would be a crime, and he's not busting you out with a hand file hidden inside of an apple. Same goes for Hinawa, so Lucas's immediate family stays. I'm okay with Ninten's sisters, as well as both his and Ness's moms, not being here because while I like them well enough, they simply don't play crucial roles in their stories by comparison. Ninten's dad, depicted as a rotary telephone, is iconic though, and he's kinda how you save the game, so you do interact with him quite a bit. In other words, I think he should stay. I honestly like the 16-bit sprite of Ness's phone dad even better, but EarthBound Beginnings did do it first, and it's already an icon, so we'll just keep that one. Additional plot-centric characters like Eve, Queen Mary, and Facade should remain in place too. I think major antagonists are just as important as the heroes, so that means Geeg and Porky Pokey are definitely keeping their spots. Lastly, Mr. Saturn and the Starman cannot get the axe because they are so critically tied to the franchise's identity that it'd be baffling if they weren't included. With 24 characters 100% in the clear, that leaves us with 36 up for the chopping block. However, there are still some heavy hitters here that would be sorely missed if neglected. So I'm going to go one by one in order to determine who's allowed to continue living. Flying Man stays. He's an incredibly unique temporary party member that helps add to the intrigue of Magicant. I guarantee you'll never forget the first time you lose one in battle. The Healer. I think he's got a cool look to him and his services are much appreciated in his respective games, but I'm okay with giving him the boot, as there are many more unique characters that deserve the spot. Sorry Healer, you're the first to go. I hope you can heal yourself from this crushing blow to your ego. Cash Dispenser. Does anyone seriously want this as their profile pic? I think the reason this was decided on is because it's a fun relic that represents the era this game is from, but the rotary phone that doubles as Ninten's dad already does that. Sorry CD, you're OUT. The Hippie. Yes. He makes an appearance in both EarthBound Beginnings and its sequel as the New Age retro hippie. He's probably the funniest human enemy in the two games. A blast to fight mainly because of his Johnny Be Good inspired music track, and he's a distinctive part of the EarthBound experience. Groucho. I like this one. He's not as recognizable as the hippie, but he's a fun encounter that subverts RPG norms as a foe who can simply say, hello, and walk away from battle, awarding experience points. It's also just a silly design based on Groucho glasses that makes for a good profile image. Mr. Bat. This is a tricky one as I love the look of the little guy, but do I love him enough to take up a slot? You know what, bat enemies appear in every game and they're always fun. I do love how ridiculous their fights can be. You can stay my batty friend. Big Woodo. Big Woodo. Sure, why not? I think we need at least one of these dumb-looking tree enemies. And this dude started the trend of evil exploding trees this series is so fond of. Armor. Okay, I'm done being nice. Absolutely not. Sorry, the sprite work looks really cool, but it's too generic. I'd rather have a more mother-like enemy in its place, such as the Mad Car. I personally would have gone with the red variant, the Psycho Car, because that one appears in Brawl and Smash Bros. For 3DS, but that's being really pedantic. Therefore, Mad Car stays. Energy Robots. That's an interesting one. It's cute, and there are enemies in future Mother games that had to have been inspired by this one, but it's not super creative or anything. Sorry, Energy Robot, I'm going to pass on you. The Titany, though, just barely makes the cut. It's more unique looking and even comes back in Mother 3. I'm a fan of these weird scorpion dudes. Both Exit Mouse and Bubble Monkey get the green light, because I don't want Nyasu Nekoban or Monkey Ness getting mad at me. Mice and monkeys are all over the place in these three games anyway, and these two in particular are some of the coolest examples of that. The gift box I'll keep because again, it's a Mother staple. They're the series equivalent to treasure chests, and it's just a neat icon to have. Ness riding a bicycle. This is another tough one since I really like the sprite, and if any main character is going to get a second icon, I think it should be Ness, but the bike is barely used at all in-game. Well, whatever, he looks so happy, and now the music is stuck in my head, so let's just keep it. It would be funny if they went with Ness and Magicant instead, so he'd be decked out in PJs with Bedhead, but if you change the region to Japan, he'd, well, be butt naked. Nintendo probably thought of it, though didn't like the idea of literally selling nakedness. Like the hippie, Master Belch is another prime example of the game's offbeat humor. I want to keep both of them though, because fighting a sentient pile of puke is especially unforgettable. And it's probably the most 90s thing EarthBound has to offer. The original gross out ad campaign is rather infamous now, but for better or worse, probably worse, Master Belch was front and center representing that aspect. He is of historical significance. Anyway, this barfy alien's a standout, and he's got his own plushie. Why shouldn't he be an icon too? Frank Fly. I was indifferent about keeping him at first, but I'm actually in full support solely because I think it's funny that you're allowed to choose a gang leader dual-wielding knives to represent yourself on Nintendo Switch. Thanks, Nintendo. The Kraken, I feel, is definitely important enough to keep because the pixel art is awesome, the battle music is one of the best tracks in the game, and the sailor who throws his sandals to try and contribute to its defeat is hilarious. Plus, again, here we have Nintendo being un-Nintendo by allowing a character with blood around its mouth to be your profile picture. Sweet! The Mani Mani statue was a good choice, because it's a symbol of greed seen all over Eagle Land as a way for the villain to spread his evil influence. The Wicked idol is linked to so many haunting moments like the Happy Happiest cult, the Moonside hallucination, and the showdown against Ness's nightmare in Magicant. The Ramblin' Evil Mushroom could be cut, but I'd like very much for it to stay because I love the design. It's a toadstool running around with two little stem legs. And annoying as it is in the game, the foe can spread spores and cause a unique status effect called Mushroomization that's similar to Confusion but even alters movement outside of battle. It's thanks to this guy that we have EarthBound cosplayers wearing mushrooms on their heads, and it was even brought to Smash as an item for Ultimate. Octobot. Like the Titany, he's uniquely EarthBound and appears again in Mother 3, but I don't know, I mulled it over and I think there's a couple of enemies I like even more, so I'm reluctantly kicking him to the curb to open up another spot. Sorry Octobot, you're cool, but let's be real, you only have 4 tentacles. The runaway dog, on the other hand, was much easier to cut. If you're going to have an Earthbound dog, why not Ness's lazy companion King, or even Raffini from the drugstore who gets possessed by the spirit of the game designer? What about Diamond Dog, the final Your Sanctuary boss fight? Those are 3 better choices for a dog than this early Onett enemy. The last 2 Mother 2 specific ones I'm for sure keeping are Dungeon Man and the Phase Distorter. I'm not sure I even have to explain the former. This is an image of a dungeon maker who combined himself with a dungeon so that he could become the world's first human and dungeon hybrid. That's amazing, and is an effective example of the many ways this game is a parody of its own genre. The Phase Distorter is another invention that's just stylin', man. That's pretty much it. It's modeled after a Mr. Saturn, so you've got the iconography there. And if you finish the game, you know how imperative it is to the ending. Alright, all that's left is Mother 3. We have 2 Mr. Saturn themed icons already, but even still, I think disguised Mr. Saturn stays. There are a ton of different Mr. Saturn variants that exist, so I think keeping one more member of the most creative alien race in the franchise is acceptable. I might be tempted to replace him with Dr. Saturn, but no, we'll keep disguised Mr. Saturn. He's too lovable, and we actually know that even the series creator has a soft spot for this Mr. Saturn specifically. The character is involved in a glitch where he gets stuck in place after a cutscene. The bug was purposely kept in because Itoy thought it was funny. Balloon Frog. I think there absolutely needed to have been a save frog in here, so good job Nintendo. I will say I'm glad it's not a standard save frog, because there are all these other amusing ones to pull from, and I respect the choice of our little balloon rider. It's one of the best. However, was it the correct choice when a frog in a car exists? I just can't say for sure, but I think I would opt to replace it myself. I'm happy for Balloon Frog getting the spot in our timeline though. Negative Man. Somewhat obscure, yes, but an incredible choice. I'm currently using him as my profile picture. That face and pose is just too good, and it speaks to me on a cosmic level. While on the topic of excellent poses, the fabulous Barrier Trio make their debut as icons here, which is just the greatest. I'm so happy to see them, as their gloriousness helps balance out the absence of Magypsies, besides Locria, technically. I skipped over the Ultimate Chimera, but of course that one stays too. There's an odd lack of chimeras in general here, but if there can only be one, it's got to be the ultimate. King statue gets a thumbs up, despite the mouth having pixels weirdly shifted over. Seriously, how did that happen? It is an optional encounter, but so conspicuous and special that it was brought to Brawl's Subspace Emissary to introduce Lucas. Mr. Passion is another tough call. I like that they didn't use his battle sprite, but rather the overworld one, where he turns his head backwards, as a nod to The Exorcist, to talk to Duster. I'm not especially attached to him though, and I don't think he should take away a spot from a certain other boss. Osohe Ghost eating food. So this one is very funny to me because there is not a doubt in my mind that Nintendo settled on this one because they wanted the much more iconic wine-drinking ghost, but decided that it'd be a bad idea to sell an icon of a character drinking dark liquid out of what is clearly a cocktail glass. Knives and blood are okay, but they have to draw the line somewhere, and that somewhere is alcohol. My wife did not see this as food and thought the sprite looked like he's smoking a doobie though. So I don't necessarily think the replacement was a success. It's just a little weird. I would have loved to have the wine drinking one. Couldn't they have just said it's juice like in the Origami King? The ghosty going through the motions of eating food is a fun gag in the game, but as a standalone sprite, I'm not sure. I'd rather see the ghost playing piano, or the one that pops up and burps in your face, but if it can't be the smug boozer, I think we should just go ahead and cut this one. Little Miss Marshmallow is another side boss that makes for a wonderful pick. She is Porky's robot maid, whose primary function is to guard what is heavily implied to be Ness's yo-yo from his adventures in EarthBound. Part of her charm is that she looks completely unassuming, but then engages nightmare mode, which is a great surprise. Rope Snake. Despite appearing in Smash and getting a decent amount of screen time in Mother 3, Rope Snake's sprite by itself isn't all that interesting. He's just a little snake, you know? I think Duster swinging on him would have made for a more dynamic icon, or him in the party riding the flying whatchamacallit. Though, considering its size, that would be hard to see from a distance, so maybe not. I think it'd be pretty funny to cut Rope Snake, considering that for much of the game he wants so desperately to be a main character, so let's add to his arc, rip off the bandage, and do it. Sorry, Rope Snake, thanks for always taking one for the team. The Clayman is our last character with a smallish role, but a prominent one nevertheless, with a profound sadness to their existence Itoi wished to express. The clay soldiers created to be used as tools for the Pigmask army represent just one of the many deep existential themes explored in the world of Mother 3. That, and they also have plushies. What can I say? You might not like me keeping Clayman while saying sayonara to our sad snake, but he just makes for a better icon in my opinion. That leaves us with, beaten drum roll please, 9 open spots. A whopping 4 for beginnings, plus a fitting 2 for Mother 2, and 3 for Mother 3. I swear I didn't do that on purpose. Therefore, taking into account relevance with a touch of personal preference, I nominate the cigarette-less crow in high heels, Bigfoot, or the hilarious-looking bear, probably Bigfoot, how else would we get a Bigfoot profile picture, Mook, the Magic Ant Dragon, Foppy, the Universal Cosmic Destroyer himself, Mechadrago, the Wine Ghost. If we can't have that, then Ionia. And if they want to steer clear of Magypsies too, then dang it, how about the light and dark dragon symbol? Or maybe the Masked Man would be better. Alright, we'll give it to the Masked Man. Lastly, I think we need a pig mask. You could argue that Nintendo wouldn't want to sell us pig Nazi PNGs either, but I'm just talking about the static sprite, no questionable salute. Pig masks are just so important to Mother 3. The lack of any of these incompetent soldiers was a choice. So, there you have it. What do you think of my replacements? I feel the most iffy about trading in Octobot for a Foppy, but when I think back on EarthBound memories, rows of Foppy and its Fobby brethren admittedly come to mind before the Octobot line. Mechadrago was the most surprising exclusion for me. I thought she or a standard Drago would get in before Mr. Passion, but who knows? Maybe they figured if we wanted to express ourselves as a dinosaur, we'd just use a Yoshi icon instead. Since I'm sure you've all got some in mind, please let me know which characters you would like to see as icons. But remember that if you add any, an existing one has to be removed, so I need to know which icon you'd be willing to sacrifice to make it happen. Thank you all for watching. I'll be in the comments reading your responses. A special shout out to my patrons of the PK Love tier: Datberry, Tori, Janssen, Captain Harlock, Pangake, Katie, Brian and Susan, Kathleen, and Jennifer. Big thanks to Aaron Cargyle and Brian Bauer as well. Keep on PK rockin'. See you all next time.